We're live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Lipakshi Khurana. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. New Delhi is all set to host Quad foreign ministers meeting leaders of Japan, Australia and US to share vision for a free and open Indo-Pacific and other issues. India and Canada agree to conclude a SEPA trade agreement by year end. Union Minister Piyush Goyal says aim is to triple trade by 2030. US military strikes Iranian boats and missile launch sites. Trump links Abraham Accords to peace deal, while Tehran indicates some progress made in talks, but a deal is not imminent. Israel begins a wave of strikes across Lebanon following an announcement by Prime Minister Netanyahu that his country will intensify its attacks on Hezbollah. And the top seeds, Jannik and Aryna Sabalenka, are set to kick off the French Open campaigns today. And on to the details now. India is set to host the Quad foreign ministers in New Delhi on Tuesday. It will be the first major ministerial engagement of the grouping since political transitions in the US and Japan. With External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar welcoming his counterparts from Australia, Japan and the US, the meeting is expected to sharpen the Quad's strategic focus on a free, open and stable Indo-Pacific.
India is all set to chair the Quad Foreign Ministers meeting on 26 May 2026. Along with India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar, the Foreign Ministers of Australia and Japan, Penny Wong and Toshimitsu Motegi, and US Secretary of State Marco Rubio will attend the meet in New Delhi. Ahead of the Quad Foreign Ministers meeting, India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar on Monday met with his Japanese counterpart Motegi Toshimitsu. Jaishankar said that India and Japan share a special strategic and global partnership.
Between India and Japan, of course, we have a special strategic and global partnership. And that signals that our ties have a larger implication, larger importance, larger impact. And one example of that will be tomorrow when we meet in the Quad format to discuss how to advance a free and open Indo-Pacific.
US Secretary of State Marco Rubio is on a 4-day visit to India. On Saturday, Rubio called on Prime Minister Modi and briefed him on the sustained progress in bilateral cooperation made across a wide range of sectors. Rubio shared US perspective on various regional and global issues, including the situation in West Asia. In keeping with the Quad vision for a free and open Indo-Pacific, the ministers will build on discussions held in Washington, D.C. on 1st July last year. They will exchange views on advancing Quad cooperation across priority areas, review progress on ongoing Quad initiatives, and reflect on recent developments in the Indo-Pacific region and other international issues of mutual concern. The Quad Foreign Minister level meet in New Delhi is expected to take stock of the group's progress and lay the groundwork for its agenda for the coming months. Hosting this edition highlights India's expanding role as a principal security provider and diplomatic anchor in the region. For India, the Quad remains a pivotal platform to maintain a balanced, stable regional order, reinforcing its diplomatic authority as a vital global player in managing maritime and continental challenges. The Quad, which comprises India, the United States, Australia and Japan, has emerged as a key grouping, largely focusing on peace, security and stability in the Indo-Pacific region. Bureau Report, DD India.
And Australian Foreign Minister Penny Wong will hold bilateral talks with External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar in New Delhi later in the evening. Wong will also call on Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Japanese Foreign Minister Toshimitsu Motegi will also call on Prime Minister Modi before concluding his two-day visit to India. And India's Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal commenced his three-day visit to Canada as New Delhi and Ottawa focus on resetting their ties with an aim to conclude the Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement by the end of this year. On the day one of his visit, the Indian Commerce and Industry Minister called on Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney and conveyed warm greetings from Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The Canadian Prime Minister fondly recalled his recent visit to India, which has imparted fresh momentum and renewed confidence to the India-Canada partnership. Goyal, in a social media post, said, and I quote him, "We had forward-looking discussions on further deepening bilateral cooperation and expressed optimism towards the early conclusion of the India-Canada Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, which would unlock new avenues of growth and prosperity for both nations." In another post, Indian Commerce and Industry Minister said he held constructive bilateral discussions with Canada's Minister of International Trade, Maninder Sidhu, on advancing the India-Canada Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement negotiations. The two leaders provided clear guidance to their teams to work towards a balanced, commercially meaningful and ambitious agreement that strengthens economic partnerships and delivers tangible benefits to businesses and citizens of both countries. Well, the Indian minister also held wide-ranging talks with Canada's Foreign Minister Anita Anand. The two leaders emphasized the importance of trade, investment and technology linkages for the India-Canada strategic partnership. The Industry and Commerce Minister also highlighted that India's expanding infrastructure, renewable energy, logistics, digital infrastructure and consumer sectors, among others, offer significant opportunities for greater collaboration and investments. Earlier, speaking to the press with Canada's International Trade Minister Maninder Sidhu, Piyush Goyal highlighted the steps taken from both sides to rejuvenate the relationship, mentioning Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney's visit to India in February this year, which he said set in motion the pathway of this relationship.
This is a partnership that is being reset very, very rapidly. We had the visit of Prime Minister Mark Carney in India just a couple of months ago. Yeah. And it was the first visit by a Canadian Prime Minister to India in 8 years. But I think it completely changed the way Canada and India looked at each other. It has set in motion the pathway to a complete overhaul of this relationship, setting new agendas, new goals in mission mode, a very ambitious target going forward, where our prime ministers have tasked us not only with completing the free trade agreement with a comprehensive outlook before the end of this year or earlier, but tripling our trade from a current $17 billion US level to a $50 billion US level by 2030.
Well, the Indian Commerce and Industry Minister further said that he is leading the largest ever Indian business delegation in the country's history, showcasing India's commitment towards the relationship. He also expressed confidence in the leadership of Maninder Sidhu, Minister of International Trade, to drive rapid progress in the relationship.
I have come with the largest ever business delegation that stepped out of India ever in our history, clearly demonstrating that there's huge interest in this partnership, and undoubtedly Canada and India, two very consequential economies, two democracies, two set of people who believed in the shared prosperity of not only our two countries, but our own contribution to global economies and global peace and security. is a relationship that's going to be very important in the years to come.
Well, amid the evolving situation in West Asia, the Indian government continues its efforts to keep citizens informed through regular updates. A media briefing was held in New Delhi on Monday, where officers from the Ministries of Petroleum and Natural Gas, Fertilizers and External Affairs gave updates on fuel and fertilizer availability.
So on behalf of Department of Fertilizer, I'd like to inform you that the overall stock position of fertilizer in the country remains comfortable. Against the assessment of 390.54 lakh metric ton for this year, the stock as on date is 200.12 LMT, that is more than 51%, and significantly higher than the usual level of 33%. Besides, the domestic production and import of fertilizer after the crisis has been substantial. The total domestic production has been about 95 lakh metric ton, and about 22.60 lakh metric tons of imports have reached our shores.
Well, the spokesperson of the Ministry of External Affairs said that Prime Minister Modi's visit to UAE helped to boost India's energy security.
Prime Minister, as you are aware, paid a highly successful visit to the UAE on 15th of May. Several key agreements were signed during the visit, which have given a boost to India's energy security, in particular on supplies of LPG, as also strengthening our strategic petroleum reserve. There were agreements on investments, so flow of fresh investments from Abu Dhabi, from UAE into India, into Indian entities in infrastructure and other sectors. In addition, we also signed a framework for the defense strategic partnership, which is again given a boost to our defense partnership with UAE. In addition to that, our missions in the region, they continue to be in touch with Indian diaspora for their welfare and for their well-being. We are also extending all possible help to a seafaring community, which is in large numbers in the Gulf region.
Well, the Government of India has notified the Liquefied Petroleum Gas Regulation of Supply and Distribution Amendment Order 2026. The amendment aims to provide additional relaxation and convenience to domestic LPG consumers who subsequently obtain piped natural gas connections. Now, under the amended provisions, LPG consumers who have PNG connections as well shall have the following options. Consumers may apply for termination of the LPG connection within 30 days of obtaining PNG connection, or consumers may obtain a transfer voucher for future restoration of LPG connection in a non-PNG area. This amendment provides significant relief and flexibility to consumers who may subsequently shift to areas where PNG infrastructure may not be feasible. The provision is particularly beneficial for transferable employees, migrant households, tenants, students and/or families shifting to non-PNG areas. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi shared glimpses from the Padma Award ceremony. The Prime Minister noted that the ceremony was filled with pride, gratitude and inspiration as distinguished personalities from diverse fields were honoured for their exceptional contributions to society and the nation. Prime Minister Modi highlighted that India's strength lies in such remarkable individuals whose work enriches our collective journey. And Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan has written to all Chief Ministers, Lieutenant Governors and Administrators across the country seeking their cooperation for the smooth, fair and successful conduct of the NEET undergraduate re-examination scheduled for 21st of June. In view of the prevailing heat wave conditions, the minister specifically urged authorities to ensure that all examination centres are equipped with essential facilities for the comfort and safety of candidates. In his letter, the minister emphasized the need for safe drinking water, adequate seating arrangements and other basic amenities. He directed the district authorities and educational institutions hosting the examination to make the necessary arrangements. Highlighting the importance of student welfare, Minister Pradhan further called for adequate transportation facilities for candidates on the day of the examination. And moving on to an update from Jammu and Kashmir, more than 300 tourists on board the suspended cabins of Asia's highest cable car were rescued following dramatic efforts over several hours in the North Kashmir hill station of Gulmarg. Rescue operations were launched on Monday afternoon after the cable car developed a technical snag, leaving the 65 cabins dangling. Panic gripped the stranded tourists as the weather turned inclement with strong winds and rains lashing Gulmarg. Panic gripped the tourists' resort after several cabins got stranded high above the ground with tourists on board. Officials said some of the cabins were hanging at a height of nearly 500 feet, making evacuation operations difficult and time-consuming. And still to come in this edition of DD India Live. Senegal President names economist Low as new Prime Minister amid fiscal crisis and IMF loan freeze. EU plans to fine Google high triple-digit million euro sum as part of an antitrust investigation. And hundreds of clowns fill Lima streets with color and laughter for Peruvian National Clown Day Parade.
Can the US launch a bombing campaign against Iran? The Philippines vessel suffered structural damage. The saga of child sexual abuse is the United States China's debt trap strategy. Truth is stranger than fiction. But sometimes hard to uncover. Trust us to tell the truth, unadulterated and pure, of every story that matters to you.
Exactly what to save your.
You read between the lines, cut the clutter, and connect the dots to get you the full picture. Watch Connecting the Dots at these times with me, only on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Lipakshi Kuran, and moving on to US-Iran war. US President Donald Trump said on Monday it should be mandatory for countries including Qatar, Pakistan, Egypt, Jordan and Turkey to join the Abraham Accords, part of an effort to reach a deal with Iran. In a new post on Truth Social, Donald Trump said the talks with Iran are proceeding nicely, but reiterated his earlier warning that it will either be a great deal for all or there will be no deal at all. Trump said he spoke to leaders of those countries as well as Saudi Arabia and Bahrain, which already have signed the accords. He said those countries would be honored to have Iran as part of the accords once a deal to end the war is reached. And the US military said it has launched new strikes on southern Iran, targeting Iranian missile sites and boats attempting to place mines. US Central Command said in a statement the strikes were taken in self-defense and were designed to protect troops from threats posed by Iranian forces. A Central Command spokesperson said the US military continues to defend forces while using restraint during the ongoing ceasefire. The strikes come as Iran said some progress has made in talks with the US, but a deal to end the conflict is not imminent. Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Ismail Baghai said on Monday that Iran and the US have reached a conclusion on a major part of the issues under discussion, but the signing of an agreement is not imminent. Baghai noted that negotiations at this stage have focused on ending the war on all fronts. Baghai also addressed different facets of a possible deal, saying a ceasefire of the war on all fronts, including Lebanon, was part of the draft agreement. He also said details about the management of the Strait of Hormuz are still undecided. Baghai added that no Iranian delegation visit to the mediating country Pakistan is planned at the moment. Also, Iranian authorities said international internet access will gradually be restored nationwide after nearly 3 months of severe restrictions. State media reported that President Masoud Pezeshkian approved the decision as officials claim the security situation in the country is beginning to stabilize. The restrictions were imposed during protest and wartime tensions, leaving millions with limited or no access to international messaging platforms, social media, and global websites. And the Israeli army intensified strikes in southern Lebanon on Monday, as Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said he had ordered the military to escalate its offensive in an effort to crush Hezbollah. Despite a ceasefire that came into effect on April 17th, Israel and Iran-backed Hezbollah have continued to exchange fire on a near-daily basis. The Israeli Air Force carried out successive strikes in the Bekaa Valley in eastern Lebanon on Monday evening. Dozens of Israeli strikes earlier targeted several towns and villages in southern Lebanon in the early hours, killing 3 people in 2 cars and on a motorcycle. Well, Israeli Prime Minister said he and President Trump agreed in a phone call that Israel would retain the right to confront perceived threats on all fronts, including Lebanon. Netanyahu doubled down on that message on Monday night, saying in a video released on Telegram that Israel is at war with Hezbollah and we will intensify strikes. And moving on, Senegal President Bassirou Diomaye Faye named a seasoned economist as Prime Minister on Monday, 3 days after dismissing the old government. The new Prime Minister, Amadou Al-Amino Alo, formerly served as head of the Senegal branch of the Central Bank of West African States. Newly appointed Lo acknowledged country's precarious financial state while attempting to stabilize market confidence. Emphasizing that the nation is in a state of emergency regarding public finances, he sought to reassure both local businesses and foreign investors that Senegal remains a safe and reliable destination for investment. The International Monetary Fund froze Senegal's $1.8 billion lending program following the discovery of misreported debt, pushing the country's end 2024 debt level to 132% of its economic output. And in business news, the European Union is planning to fine Alphabet's Google a high triple-digit million euro amount as part of an antitrust investigation. The decision is nearing completion and is expected to be announced before the summer break, the Germany's Handelsblatt newspaper said, adding it would be the largest penalty the EU has imposed for a breach of its Digital Markets Act, which aims to curb the power of big tech companies. The investigation, which was officially launched in March 2025, relates to concerns that Google favors its own services in search results and seeks to ensure the world's most popular internet search engine complies with local regulation. Google has criticized the impact of the EU's rule on its search product and said it is keen to resolve the case. And in sports news, the top seeds are set to kick off the French Open campaigns in Paris today as Jannik, Aryna, Sabalenka and defending champion Coco Gauff enter the fray. Sinner, who has a golden opportunity to finally win the French Open and complete his career Grand Slam, will take on Clement Tabor in the opening round. The world #1 has left little doubt about his status as the favourite this year, as he's won all 5 ATP 1000 Masters titles this year, including 3 on clay since last month. Meanwhile, world #1 in women's single, Aryna Sabalenka will begin a campaign against Jessica Bozas Monteiro. Reaching the final of the French Open last year was a sign that Sabalenka had started to master the clay court after years of struggle. Defending champion Coco Gauff will also be in action, playing fellow American Taylor Townsend. Her ability to fight through difficult matches was on full display at the Italian Open earlier this month, where she won 3 matches after losing the first set before losing the final to Aryna Svitolina. And former champions Stan Wawrinka and Gael Monfils bade an emotional farewell to the French Open after they failed to cross the first hurdle in Paris. Wawrinka's final Roland Garros campaign ended in disappointment as the 41-year-old was beaten 6-3, 3-6, 6-3, 6-4 by Dutch Jesper de Jong. Wawrinka, who beat Novak Djokovic in the 2015 final, will retire at end of the season. He enjoyed a fairy tale run to the third round of his last Australian Open but could not repeat the feat in the Paris heat despite being backed by a packed crowd. Meanwhile, home favourite Gael Monfils' challenge also ended at the first hurdle despite a rousing comeback from 2 sets down by the 39-year-old. The former semi-finalist, who was also hanging up his racket at the end of the year, slipped to a dramatic 6-2, 6-3, 3-6, 2-6, 6-0 defeat by fellow French wildcard Hugo Gaston. In women's singles, second seed Aryna Rybakina eased into the second round with comfortable win. Rybakina wasted little time in swatting aside Slovenian Veronika Ajovic 6-2, 6-2. Rybakina, who won the Australian Open earlier this year, plays Ukraine's Yulia Starodubtseva next. All right, that's all that we have for you in this edition. Before we go, we leave you with vibrant visuals from Lima, where hundreds of clowns took over the street to mark Peruvian National Clown Day, filling the city's downtown with color, music and laughter in its annual parade. Take a look. All right, that's all for this edition of DD India Live, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Lipakshi Khurana from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Live.